I am recording the recording of recordings.
Hello, I'm recording. Hello, Teddy.
Hello, Daddy.
Teddy.
Teddy.
Teddy. Fuck you, Teddy.
You know that fat bitch that he lives with? Like, you know that fat old bitch that he lives with? He doesn't live with in the actual TV show, it's only the animated show, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That fucking fat old slut.
You hate this old animated woman.
You're allowed to say that about animated people, aren't you? They're not real people.
Right!
Hello there, my name's Seb, and I'm addicted to making women orgasm. Oh, sorry,
Seb.
wrong Zoom. Hello and welcome to Goats. Or should I say Woats, but more on that later. Before we crack on today, just want to remind you to follow us on Instagram, link in the old descriptione, and watch the full unedited version of this episode on YouTube, also link in the description. We also have a Patreon, do with that information what you will. Before we get on with today's topic, how are you both doing?
Fantastic, mate.
Good.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Fantastic.
I'm fucking excited to just start talking about this macabre fucking shit and make it real funny.
Nice. Well, exactly. Anything interesting happen?
I went to like a chess night recently. With my
Yeah, you
housemate.
said you beat everyone but Seb.
I beat everyone but my housemate. Yeah. But I beat
just saying something.
I beat this one lady real bad. It was real sad. Well, I felt bad. I'm rhyming. I don't know why I'm rhyming.
That's the cold open. I beat this one lady real bad. I feel sad.
It was real bad.
That's funny that you played chess, because I played chess on the weekend too, but go on.
Yeah, she just made every wrong move, and I just was just like, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna take your rook, I'm gonna take your bishop, I'm gonna take your queen. Like, I'm not gonna knock.
I'm gonna take your life.
Yeah, she looked pretty fed up towards the end.
Oh no!
I'm not gonna lie.
I gave her a chess beatdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went away this weekend to this nice little bungalow thing in this farm with my partner's family, and the power went off for one day. We were like running on a generator, which is a bit annoying. But I randomly found a chess set in a cupboard, and I got my partner's niece, who's 10. I was like, oh, you know how to play chess? She was like, yeah. And like half the pieces were missing, so like just replaced them with like Lego bricks and stuff, the classic. But yeah, I absolutely fucking whooped her. She didn't even take a single one of my pieces. It's, like, absolutely just.
Did you make her cry?
Nice.
She was frustrated. She was like, oh. And she was taking ages to do every move, and I was like, what's the point? Like, just succumb to defeat,
You laugh a lot when you're winning as well. When you're winning really badly, you just bellow out a big laughter.
Oh yeah. And pointing as well. Lots of pointing as well. Like, ha 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 ha. But I said to Jen, I said I won't. I said she won't take any of my pieces. Watch, and I just It's a good life lesson.
Wait, Jen, come here. This 10-year-old, right? She won't take a single one of my pieces.
Yeah. So I'm glad we had similar chess experiences over the weekend. That's good. That's a good little.
I don't know about similar
note.
What about you, Sebek? What you been up to?
Well, as I've already told both of you, Vinny twice, I think at this point, went to watch Godzilla -1 in IMAX. It was great. I've already told you guys how great it was. I really enjoyed it. Not ironically as well. It was like legitimately really good. The fucking CGI, man. The atomic breath in this is chef's kiss. It's really different to any atomic breath you've seen before. It's not like a big melty heat beam. He goes like, whoa, and then it like sets off like an atomic blast where it hits. And like a proper massive like boom, mushroom cloud, fucking everything. And it was really, really good. It gave me the explosion I wanted from Oppenheimer but didn't get. It really.
Right, yeah.
There's like a proper there's one bit where he's like in not Tokyo, but one of the big cities, and he goes like, boom, and he just levels the whole thing, and it's really visceral, and you're like, fucking sick. And it's like it like burns Godzilla. The explosion's so big it like rips some of his skin off, and he's just like, it's fucking sick. But was mildly ruined by this guy who sat behind me. I've already teased you with this American guy sat. Already I'm annoyed. The
racism is full blown here.
Yeah.
It's coming out.
Well, he's white. Americans are
xenophobia.
My xenophobia was. He sits down behind me and he immediately tells the people to either side of him. He goes, "I got free tickets to this," and they went, "Oh, right." He goes, "Because I'm a movie critic." He doesn't actually talk like that, but I can't do an American accent. And he goes, "I'm a movie critic," and I was like, and they're like, "Oh, right, yeah," and he goes like, "Yeah, I just write about movies in my spare time," and I'm like, whatever. Literally, the whole fucking film, he's just making snide little comments, like for everyone to hear. Like at the start, right? Because it's the UK premiere of this film, there's a bunch of Japanese people in the audience, and like the woman at the thing goes like, "Oh, we're really proud that we're the first. We've got this like deal with Toho. We've worked with Toho for a long time. We're really grateful. There's some members of Toho in the audience, like who've come over to watch this film in IMAX. Bye bye blue. Thank you so much. Bye bye blue." Film starts. The Toho symbol comes up, and a bunch of people start clapping, and then all the white people start clapping as well, because you know what we're like. We're just like, well, everyone's clapping, so we'll clap. And the guy,
white people be like,
white people be like.
But then the American guy goes, "That's so Japanese." What? What do you mean it's so Japanese? What the fuck have you never been? You don't know that. You're just being presumptuous. You're just being a knob.
Yeah.
And then the whole, like, literally, I won't bleep this. I'll try not to ruin it. But at the end of the film, there's a big reveal where, spoiler alert, someone you thought got killed by a massive atomic blast is actually all right. And they've got like an eye patch on, and he's like in the background, he's going, "Oh, how convenient. She's just back with her eye patch. Everything's fine. Oh, wow." And it's like, it's a fucking film, mate. Chill out. You're not.
That is quite a funny comment, actually.
It's not, no, but not in the middle. Like, just fuck off.
Put that in your blog.
Like, just write it down in your little note. And he also had a notepad with him. He was like,
"Oh, no.
Oh, shut the fuck up. No one cares." Like,
Well,
yeah.
Well, I guess the
my
Film
free
critics
tickets
do my
cared.
tits in.
My critiques would be this: that people who clap when the plane lands or in movies, we don't need any of that about. Thank you, fuck off. And comment number 2: not enough rubber suits. CGI too good. Needs more.
Well, what
needs
I
more
would
rubber
say
suits.
about this Godzilla is he looks so he grows throughout the film, and big Godzilla, they do a really good job of it looking like a model, but also looking really good. So like he does the big arms, like really slow walking forward. The thing that I would say about this, which I really like, and it's a criticism I have of the American Godzilla, especially in the more recent films, he's too quick. He's running, he's sprinting, he's like jogging with his arms. No. This Godzilla is just slowly lumbering forwards. He's a right cunt as well. He's an absolute dick. He's just like, at one point, he just kills people for fun. He levels a whole building with his tail just because. It's great. It was
should do that.
Brilliant. Yeah. And he's
everyone knows the fastest way that, like, if Godzilla wants to get anywhere quick, he slides on his tail.
Yeah. Well,
that's how he gets around quick, right?
A sliding drop kick.
Yeah. Did he sliding drop kick anyone?
He didn't slide and drop kick, but it is. I tell you what, it's very much. The director said this, and you can see it. Really inspired by Jaws. There's a lot of like small fishing boats just waiting, and then they have this really cool thing where, because he's from the bottom of the sea, when Godzilla rushes to the surface, he pulls a bunch of like deep sea fish with him. So then all these like weird fish start coming up to the surface before Godzilla turns up, and so they'll like be sat on a boat just chatting, and then you'll hear like kablung, kablung, and then it's all these like fish popping up, and then and it is fucking great. I really enjoyed it. I actually genuinely, it was fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll probably give it a watch. Yeah, I'm such a massive fan of like the old school ones that I'm always a little bit like, I kind of just want more of that. But I do still enjoy the modern ones.
I would say it has a real like low budget feel, but while looking really good. I don't know. I really rate it. I would say it's much better than any of the like. And I like the American ones as well, but it's not corny, but it is slightly campy, and it just works. It just works really well.
Yeah, good. I'm glad Godzilla's getting more love.
Yeah. Anyway, should we crack on?
Yes, mate.
Let's do it.
Right, let's go.
Serious faces.
Cruel, callous, and often sexually motivated. Michael and Vinny are two of my closest friends.
I knew you were going to say that.
And this week, we'll be discussing the worst murderers the world has to offer. Now, obviously, the definition of a murderer is pretty broad, so it's a lot is left on the table. It's just someone who's taken someone else's life. And I should warn any listeners who happen to stumble their way over from the other podcast I work on, this may not be the nuanced deep dive that you're used to. I'm sure Michael and Vinny have done a great job, but just bear that in mind. We're not a full-time true crime show. And I will point out again very clearly, this is a WOTE episode worst. We're not giving any of these people any kind of applause. We don't think they're good people. We're just having a chat. So, just put your pitchforks down. With that in mind, let's fucking wank off to some proper sick fuckers. Who's going first?
Me.
Okay. Go on then, me.
Didn't realize the intro would be that quick.
It's serial killers though, isn't it? Not
yeah. I by the way, is WOTE serial killer, not WOTE just murderer.
Oh, all right. Let's do it again. Oh, I didn't realize that. I've written murderer. That's right. Give me a sec. I'll go back to just after I made the joke about how you two are fuckers. This week, we'll be discussing the worst serial killers the world has to offer. Now, obviously, the definition of a serial killer is just someone who's killed more than 3 people. So that's a lot of people left on the table.
As well, like not like mass murders. That's like a different thing, isn't it?
That's a whole different thing. Although there's some debate about that. There's a lot of crossover, But then, you wouldn't call like a school shooter a serial killer.
Because it's in.
But then I guess if they did multiple school shootings, then they might. I don't know. Again,
serial
it doesn't really need it.
This leads me on perfectly to my next point, which is
getting away with it.
Oh no.
Really
well, that also leads me on really well to my next point, which is that any listeners who've stumbled their way over from the other podcast, potentially with our collaboration with Miss Saru Bala, this may not be the nuanced deep dive that you're used to. And I should also point out very clearly that this is a WOTE episode. We're not giving any of these horrible people any kind of applause. We're just objectively crowning one of them the worst.
Yeah.
With that in mind, let's talk about some proper sick fuckers. Who's going first?
Me.
V-Dog, you're up.
Take us away.
Yes.
Now, I should point out this more than any other episode, you're not allowed to nominate yourself.
Fuck, I wrote like 6 pages on why I'm the worst serial killer of all time. I'm pretty, I don't know if I wouldn't classify myself as a serial killer, so definitely the worst.
I'm glad you clarified that, Vinny.
You're only on 2, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still on 2. I'm my sophomore.
Looking for the 3rd, but
I'm looking for the right one. I want to make sure they're the right one.
That's the thing. Killing one person, easy as piss. Killing 2, that's where it gets difficult. And getting that 3rd, that's real hard.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyone can kill one person. Anyone.
Yeah.
We just
under
don't.
The right circumstances.
That's what genuinely people always go, does it freak you out working in true crime? Not at all. Because you realise killing people is so easy, but we just don't do it. Like, society just works like that. Like, we don't do it because people just don't want to kill other people. It's a really, we live on a knife edge and it's fine. Like, you could drive down the street and just fucking hit someone in your car, and there's a good chance you could go, they just stepped out in front of me and they're fucking dead, so they can't say they didn't, and you just get away with it. But you just don't. People just don't
sort
do
of
that.
With it, yeah. I know,
Like, do you know what I mean?
And like anybody, everyone's like, oh, I can never kill anyone, but like, it's not about like that you intend to go out and kill someone, but like in a crazy moment of like a rush of this, or something crazy happens to you, you could be anywhere, like at a fuel station in under the right circumstances, like you might snap, something, instinct, fucking your lizard brain takes over, and you just whack someone with a heavy object, and they just die, and that's it. Like everybody has that capacity.
Yeah, aren't most murders just like the vast majority of murders just like passion kills? Like
I
would say circumstantial, like, something. Yeah,
a wife and a husband, one's cheating on the other or something. Stuff like that.
That is why
a heated argument.
We've already gone off the rails, but fuck it, who cares? It's an interesting episode. That is one of the arguments, and would be one of my arguments why like gun ownership is so dangerous, especially like handguns and stuff in the US. Is that like stabbing someone is quite like it takes a lot to stab someone. Like most people aren't capable of stabbing someone. That is quite like you have to really like and
it's up close and personal.
If you stab someone once, you're probably not going to kill them. You have to fucking just keep wailing on them. That's quite a lot. Whereas a gun, you can just go, oh, I fucking hate you, bang. And then
close your
done.
eyes, it's done.
It's in a heartbeat. And like that, I think is like what makes it so dangerous, and like it's fucked. Also, fucking hell. Makes killing yourself a bit too easy, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you can take a knife to the head. That's pretty. That's a pretty bad way to go, I feel.
Exactly. And
I don't know if I could stab myself in the head with a knife.
It's just too easy, isn't it? It's just like a...
Yeah.
It's too easy.
It makes a lot of things easier.
We'd do it within a week if they legalised handguns here.
The worst bit is, I don't think... I can't say that, but yeah.
Okay.
I legitimately think if I'd had a gun in the last 10 years, I would be dead. 100%.
Okay.
100%.
I'd have killed so many people as well if I had a gun.
Yeah, 100%. You would. You're a right cunt.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have done a Chris Benoit, 100%.
I wouldn't have killed my family.
Chris Benoit.
Nah, I think Anthony would.
I'm not going to kill my family.
No, do you know what it is, right, Michael? I don't think you'd kill them first. I think you'd kill someone else, and then you'd go, I love Leo and Jen so much, I don't want them to think of me like this. I'll kill them. And then you'd kill them, and then be like, oh, fuck, I've got to kill myself now.
No, I wouldn't kill them.
That series of events happens way more than you think.
I killed myself before I killed them, 100%.
Well, what would you do? Line them all up?
No, like, I wouldn't be like, right, they're going to be ashamed of me and fucking blow their brains out. I'll just do myself in.
But it is mad how quickly that logic... Alex wrote about someone recently, red-handed, where this guy... did a family murder, killed his wife and kid because he just spent his whole time lying about how he had a job, and then his wife found out, and he was like, well, they're ashamed of me, so they got to die. The thing that riled me the most, and the most fucked up thing is he also killed his dog so his daughter would have someone to play with.
What, like in heaven?
Yeah, he was just like,
that's fucked up.
He was like, I'll just send her up the dog. For some reason, that's the worst bit by far, and I don't know why. That's like
evangelical Christianism gone wrong.
Yeah, I just love the idea. It's like, oh, up you go, Snuffles. He's going to need someone to chat to.
I feel so bad for laughing. No, I don't really.
Yeah, same. But like, just imagine, it's an absurd scenario. He's walking around the house. He's like, for fuck's sake, I feel so bad. Like they're all dead, and then he just looks at the dog and he's like, wait a minute, I know how to cheer them up.
They won't be expecting you for like another 5 years. You turn up off the bat, they'll be buzzing.
That's consolation prize, yeah.
Yeah.
You may be dead, but at least your dog's dead too. Right, I
wonder how much of this episode's getting cut.
You're already gone off the deep end.
You're in heaven. Your dad's just shot you, and then there's just family members falling down next to you. You're like, oh no, not my sister. And then you're like, well, at least it's over. And then the dog, and then the hamster comes down. A couple of goldfish come down. You're like, oh no.
No, they'd be like, yes, wouldn't they?
Nah. Yes, kill them all.
No, because Well, no, because in his scenario, he's like, now they're happy. They got someone to play with, like you said.
I think he's just murdering animals for no reason.
I know he's a nutter.
Do you know what is really interesting? Going back to something, we probably can't put this in either. Michael, you'll have to judge this.
I was supposed to start like 20 minutes ago.
What's a really interesting thing and a really interesting example of how this stuff happens is, I had a conversation, Michael, with your girlfriend wife recently, where she said, no, this is a nice thing, where she was like, if me and Michael were on a helicopter and the helicopter exploded, she was like, I wouldn't know whether I'd want your son on it with me because I don't like the idea of him not having anyone there with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you may as well go as a family. And that is genuinely like really logical thought. And like, it doesn't come from a place of evil at all. It comes from a place of like love. And I think that's like what a lot of, and then she was like, well, obviously I wouldn't do that because I want him to live. Like, but that like snap moment of thinking, like that like weird break in our human logic where we go like, I love this person and I'm going to be dead. So do I take like, and
you don't want them to suffer in your absence.
And
I
like,
suppose,
sorry, I don't know if that makes, I don't mean for that to make Jen sound bad at all. Like, if anything, the opposite.
No,
because it like, it really shows that like weird, like human break in the logic where you're like, your love for someone and your like desire to keep them safe can somehow like in a split second put someone into danger.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is weird. People, Right, Vinny, go on.
Vinny,
serious face now. Let's
sorry, we've tangentified a bit there. Vinny, would you like to crack on with your pick for the coolest serial killer of all time? Sorry, the worst serial killer of all time.
Yeah, before I get started, because like, I have a fairly long script, so I'll have to be quite quick about it. But before I get started, I just want to say, I was going to pick the coolest serial killer because I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick like the Zodiac Killer because I'm like, the Zodiac Killer's got such a crazy story. It's really entertaining. That film that Ridley Scott made a few years back was good, so I really liked it. I was like, yeah, that's a great story for anyone who doesn't know it. But then I was like,
it wasn't Ridley Scott.
It was Ridley Scott.
David Fincher.
You're right. Sorry, David Fincher. You're right. But then I was like, I'm not doing coolest serial killer. I mean, we'll do that one day. We'll do coolest serial killer one day, I'm sure. After like worst mass shooting and worst genocide,
worst terror attack,
raddest genocide.
Yeah,
raddest genocide. But no, we're not doing that today. Obviously, we're doing the worst serial killer of all time. So I had to go pretty dark for this one. I found a fella who did a lot of really fucked up shit, and I would say he's probably maybe the most despicable and morally abhorrent people I've ever heard of, at least over the past like 150 odd years. So, okay, without further ado, on the 11th of February, 1927, two brothers aged 3 and 12 were playing in an apartment hallway in Brooklyn with another boy, 4-year-old Billy Gaffney. Now,
I don't like where this has started.
Yeah, I will say, viewer discretion is advised. Just if you don't like child mutilation, that's a weird warning to put into this.
Yeah. People probably don't, but if you really don't,
if you're too shocked by that to want, if it's too much for you, I feel skip this episode.
This is going to be a shocking one. It's one of those where some people just don't like listening to stuff. Perfectly understandable.
Yeah. Honestly, it was pretty dark researching all this stuff. I went to some dark places.
Yeah.
But anyway, at some point, the 12-year-old boy left the younger two alone, and when he returned, they had vanished. A little later, the 3-year-old was found on the rooftop of the apartment, but with no Billy Gaffney in sight. When the boy was
euphemism, or is that?
No,
that's the name of the child.
Billy Gaffney's the 4-year-old who was playing with.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't me being. I was.
Yeah. When he was asked what had happened to the other boy, he replied with, quote, the boogeyman took him. Billy's body was never recovered. This is the story of the man behind this child's disappearance. This is the story of the real-life boogeyman. Mm-hmm. Now that I've hooked you in with the bit that will happen later on in his life, I'm going to start you right at the start. Oh, I also forgot to tell you who I'm picking. So the guy I'm picking is called Albert Fish. So let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Albert Fish. Never heard of him.
Did you mean to say you'd hooked us in there, or is that an unintended pun?
That's an unintended pun in this extremely dark script.
Yeah.
It's a little blink of light there.
a little something to keep people from doing unspeakable
It's a little joke for you there, little funny pun.
Lighten the mood a bit. So Albert Fish was born in Washington, D.C. in the year 1870. He was the youngest of four and had a very interesting family, to say the least. His father was aged 75 at birth, being a whole 43 years older than his mum.
Oh, that'll do it.
His uncle had mania. One of his brothers was confined to a mental hospital. His sister was diagnosed with a, quote, mental affliction, and his mother had aural and or visual hallucinations. So yeah, right from the get-go, he's not been born into the most stable of families, let's just say.
No.
And it gets worse. So at 5 years old, Albert's now 80-year-old father suffers a fatal heart attack and dies.
80?
And obviously this would put a lot of financial pressure on the mother. So basically what she does is she puts young Albert Fish into an orphanage so that they can look after him and she doesn't have to worry about feeding him and whatnot. And this is where Albert is first introduced to his lifelong obsession with pain. See, at the orphanage, they frequently physically abused and beat the kids. Now, the funny thing, well, I wouldn't say it's funny, but the strange thing is, the strange thing is, Albert started to really like the beatings. He would start getting like a sexual thrill out of being hit, and that would lead him to be beaten even more, thus sort of perpetuating this horrific masochistic cycle. Over the next few years, he would continue down this degenerate pathway, visiting public baths just to watch the other boys undress, and even starting to experiment with the consumption of urine and feces.
Disgusting.
It's only going to get worse from here, boy.
Oh, God.
It's a dry one tonight. By age 20, Albert moved to New York City, where he supposedly engaged in male prostitution. And it was at this time he would also start molesting and raping young boys, usually ones less than 6 years old.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He would later tell detectives that he would commonly go for either the mentally disabled or the African American kids, obviously because during that time those groups of people weren't the most protected, the most looked after by authorities, so it would kind of help him evade any sort of punishment for his crimes. He would boast he had lived in over 20 states and had raped and or murdered at least one child in each of them.
Oh, dear.
What?
I personally wouldn't boast about that, but there we go.
I probably wouldn't put it on my CV.
He puts it at the top of his LinkedIn. Sorry, can we make jokes?
Yeah, it's fine.
Gotta lighten the mood somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By 1898, Albert's mother had actually arranged for her son to marry a young woman by the name of Anna Hoffman. They would have 6 children together. Now, thankfully, there isn't any evidence or anything close to resembling Albert either sexually or physically abusing his kids. So that's That's the one ray of sunshine in this.
Right,
story.
yeah.
We can hold on to that. No.
That thing that like basically everybody does, you know, the normal thing, the thing that only people who are not absolutely mental, you know, don't abuse your own kids.
Yeah.
Let's give them a gold star for, you know, not doing, you know, do you know what I mean?
He tried his best. I mean, he didn't. But it's, you know, it could be worse, I suppose. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
It could be worse. Oh, yeah.
But
Not sure it's worthy of praise, but it could be worse.
Sometimes maybe good. I don't know about good. Because
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
I wouldn't say good, because although he wouldn't abuse his kids, he would do some pretty weird things with them. So he would play this strange game with his kids where they would sit on his back and then hold up a number of fingers on their hands. Albert would then guess how many fingers they were holding up, and if he was wrong, he would make them spank him with a nail-studded paddle.
Don't like that.
They would recount later that he never got the number correct and would often guess a number that even wasn't possible to be held up by two hands.
25.
He's like 14. Yeah. Oh, not again. That's horrible.
Yeah,
that is sexual abuse, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it is, but I feel that's as far as it went as far as that stuff.
Right.
I'm not even going to read that paragraph. It's pretty. It makes me wince. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to read that paragraph. In 1917, his wife would leave him for a handyman, meaning Albert would have to raise his children by himself. I guess this must have caused him a lot of turmoil and stress, because around this time he started having auditory hallucinations himself, much like his mother would, telling people he was following the instructions of John the Apostle. And you know what John the Apostle was telling him?
Was it kill people?
It was to sacrifice and mutilate children.
He does like that, right. John.
Yeah.
They don't put that in the Bible, but...
It's a little known fact about John the Apostle. He likes when people sacrifice and mutilate children.
Well, there is that bit where doesn't that guy get told to sacrifice his own son, and then God's like, just kidding.
Yeah.
Isaac or something?
Isn't Isaac the son? Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's Abraham.
Abraham. He's like, kill your two kids. And then he's like, I'll do it. And then he's like,
I was just testing you, make sure that you would do all the stuff I want you to do. And he's like, God, you
that's fucking grim.
Fucking nearly got me.
He's done it again, that bloody bastard.
Yeah, and
he can't keep getting away with it.
And what Albert would actually, I think, like his logic was that, like, even though he knew that, like, oh, surely, like, the Bible's against the sacrificing of children, but he thought that if it was really bad, you know, I think John told him an angel would step in. So, like, if they don't, then it's all kosher. That's, like, how he sort of logicked it in his head. And not only that, he would start ramping up the
That's fucking insane. Sorry. Like, you just be like, well, if it was really bad to take drugs, an angel would step in. So
but that is what like mental illness like that, hearing voices is like, though.
Yeah, it seems like true. Super illogical to us, but for them it's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, around this time he would also start ramping up the self-harming, and this was a sort of way of trying to rid himself of sin in a kind of Dark Ages kind of way.
Yeah.
So some of the things he would do, Albert would insert wool doused in lighter fluid up his arse and then set it alight. He would also stick needles into his groin and abdomen, sometimes sticking them so deeply into his body they would get lost and remain there.
What?
Years later, after his arrest, X-rays would reveal he had at least 29 needles lodged into his pelvic region, and there's an image on the internet of it. and it is
I'm gonna
grim.
Google Albert.
Okay, I gotta see this.
I'll Google it as well for the YouTube viewers.
Albert Fish. X-ray comes up straight away. Google is listening to my conversation.
I wasn't expecting to be wearing a hat like that.
Well, it's like the late 1800s.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's it.
Crikey.
Oh, there's so many in there.
Image isn't great, but yeah.
There's a couple in the legs, lots in the dick region.
Yeah.
Lots in the dick.
Yeah.
Jesus. He's an interesting chap, isn't he?
To say the least. So, in 1924, police found the body of 9-year-old Francis McDonnell hanging by a tree near his home. He had been sexually assaulted and strangled so viciously with his own suspenders that he was wearing that the suspenders had melded with his skin.
What?
Whose idea was this episode? This wasn't mine.
Yours. Yes,
No,
it
this
was.
not my idea.
You were like, oh, we can do serial killer, but it's got to be woke. And we're like, yeah, well, that makes sense. And you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well, let's do it.
because you would have. If I said we can do it, but we've got to do woke, that means that one of you two said we should do serial killer, and then I responded with, well, we can do it as long as we do woke. So that means one of you two put it forward.
No, I remember you put it forward,
No.
Seb. You were like, oh, we should
I
do serial
didn't-
killer. And then I was like, we maybe not goat, maybe woe. And then
No, you're gaslighting me, you little fuck.
No,
That's not what happened.
it was
You
you.
little shit. No, both of you, stop this. It's not in keeping with the episode. Don't gaslight me into thinking I came up with this idea. Because I
Well,
would have.
if anything, we all greenlit it. No one said, right, let's not do this.
there's no blame
someone
game here.
thought this. Someone's idea was this, and it wasn't me because I do this for work. So I wouldn't have thought we should do my job for work.
Yeah, but I come up with ideas that you guys always like, no, let's not do that. So why didn't you step in if you thought it was a bad idea?
Don't because an angel would have said something. Now, Vinny, carry on.
Exactly. Like I've been saying British stereotype, e.g. chav, emo, goth, in brackets, grab bag, for like 12 months and we still haven't done it because you're like, no, that's horrible.
Yeah, well, and this is a good lesson, isn't it? Now, Vinny, carry on talking about this poor child who had a pair of tights melded to his neck.
Gladly. The boy's friends told police that he had been taken by an elderly man with a grey mustache. Francis' mother said she also saw the same man earlier that day, telling reporters, quote, he came shuffling down the street, mumbling to himself and making queer motions with his hands. I saw this thick grey hair and drooping grey mustache. Everything about him seemed faded and grey. And his description resulted in Albert Fish being dubbed as the Grey Man, which is another name people call him by. 3 years later, that boy from the start of my script that I was talking about, Billy Gaffney, was also taken by Albert. Now, Billy, as I said before, Billy's body was never recovered, and the reason for this is, so according to Albert, in a letter he wrote to his attorney, after doing the usual, torturing and mutilating of the boy, he drank his blood, cut his body up, cooked it all, and then ate it over a period of a few days.
Oh.
And part
Why
of
does
the
it always go to cannibalism? Like, I'm sorry, I know people are like, oh, cannibalism's not that bad. I'd eat someone if it was like, proper. Cannibalism to me is like one of the worst things you can do. Eat another human.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd do it.
What?
Yeah, I know. I can't wrap my head around it. To me, it's like I could never.
No.
I'd give it a go.
No, I don't.
There's something so putrid about eating the flesh of
That's
another
disgusting.
human.
It's deeply
Not even in a
unnatural.
murdery way. Just if it was like totally, imagine like a
think it's-
total
yeah.
scenario where it's totally fine. Like they weren't murdered. It was all cool.
I think it's like lizard,
I just still wouldn't eat it.
it's like lizard brain wrong. It's like
Yeah.
deep. Like we're not supposed to do it. It's like in
Yeah.
your innate evolutionary like back of your
Yeah,
brain.
really.
Like you're not supposed to eat your own species.
Yeah, really.
Maybe I'm a psychopath because I'd be like,
Yeah.
if
No,
someone
no,
offered me their
'cause-
foot and it was cooked and it was like smelt nice, if it like smelt nice and it tasted like it would taste good, I'd be like, yeah, all right, I'll
No,
have
but
a bit. A bit of your
So
foot.
Vinny's not the only one. I've had loads of people be like, I wouldn't have a problem with trying it, and it just doesn't have that instant repulsion in their brain.
That's weird.
But like to me, if you served me some meat and I ate it, and then you're like, that was human, I would be like fucking vegan for life. Do you know what I mean?
throw up. Yeah, I would throw
like
up.
it would be, it would just torture me.
Well, then
But not for Albert.
Yeah, you're not gonna like part of the letter which he sent to his attorney, which read, "I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as his sweet, fat little behind did."
Oh.
In 1928, Albert saw an advert in a newspaper about a young man named Edward Budd, and this dude was seeking employment. Sensing another victim, he visited Edward in his own home under the fake name Frank Howard, claiming he was there to offer him a job. But when he got to the house, he met Edward's younger sister, a 10-year-old by the name of Grace Budd. Albert quickly shifted his attention from Edward to Grace. He conversed with the Budd family and even charmed them with his warm and friendly demeanor. He lied to them, saying he was actually on his way to his niece's party that was nearby, and asked Grace's parents if she could attend with him. Now, the Budds were obviously hesitant at first. This man is a stranger, but Grace's father unfortunately made the decision that it would be good for her to go and make new friends. Albert gave the family a fake address to the party and left with young Grace. She would never be seen by her family ever again. He took Grace to an abandoned house where he strangled her to death. He would claim that he didn't do any sort of sexual things with her, but he would say that while strangling her, he uncontrollably orgasmed twice.
What the fuck?
He then chopped up her body so he could cook her and eat her over the course of 9 days. Now, this is the extra shit part. So 6 years later, and this is the reason I know of this guy. This is this particular case. So 6 years after that, Albert would write an anonymous letter to the Budd family explaining in detail how he carried out the murder and cannibalism of their daughter.
Yes, now I know about this guy. Did you hear about on Sleepycast first?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
They talk about this guy who like wrote a letter to the family of the kid he ate. Yeah, from prison. Okay. Yeah, carry on.
And part of the letter wrote, "How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body." God, this is dark. But anyway, this letter thankfully would end up being bad for Albert Fish. It would lead the police right to Albert Fish's door, and after decades of trying and failing to catch this real-life boogeyman, they had finally done it. Although he would only confess to 3 murders, he was suspected of being involved in at least 10 over his lifetime, as well as confessing he stabbed 2 others. He would also claim...
How old was he when he got caught? Sorry to interrupt.
I think he was 60-something. Let's look.
Yeah, because he was described as like an old man. So that's a long time. The thing is, that's a long time to have had some like speculation about, okay, in that like 40 odd years, you know, that he was probably going around doing this. Like, yeah, how many missing children cases have like could potentially be attributed to him that he won't admit to?
Well, he claimed that he had over 100 victims, but like one thing with serial killers is they do like to inflate the numbers, and no one's sure if he meant victims as in murdered victims or just victims he like molested or whatever. And also because he did do a lot of like, it wasn't just kids, it was also like young men. Like he was also homosexual. He had lots of male lovers over his time. I think he did some horrible stuff to them. And because around that time homosexuality again wasn't sort of seen in a super favorable light, so
people didn't really look into it.
Police probably didn't care as much, / the people who were affected probably just didn't want to go out because then it would be outing them as homosexuals, which obviously again at that time was a big no-no. So during his trial, he was apparently without much emotion and certainly without remorse for his crimes. His attorney tried to lessen Albert's sentence by trying to convince the jury that he was insane. And although the jury unanimously agreed that he probably was insane, definitely not a sound mind, they ultimately felt that he should be executed anyway, just due to how evil his crimes were.
Yeah.
The judge sentenced Albert Fish to die by electrocution. Despite knowing he was now about to be put to death, the idea of having one last jolt of excruciating pain actually made him happy. He thanked the judge for the sentence, and on the 16th of January 1936, he was pronounced dead. And
1936.
I don't have a conclusion because I don't know how to conclude that. But
well, he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, I think that's maybe not the worst bit about it, but that's the shit cherry on top is that he died happy. That's why the little shit cherry.
Yeah, it's like
one of the many reasons that you shouldn't be murdered. You shouldn't sentence people to death. It's just that's
the thing is
people's.
Yeah, like I've been reading obviously about serial killers this week, but of the ones that do get executed, obviously like a lot of the big ones are in America and they do get executed, and it always with like the execution is there's always like a line of like the victims' families were conflicted by this decision because they thought, oh, once he gets executed, oh great, like
that's it,
he's not suffering anymore, like how like my child or brother or whoever like suffered, he's just dead and now that's it, like done. Like a lot of these families would rather they just like rotted in pain forever, like at the end of the day, like you said, especially like this guy, like that's even worse. Like not only did he cause all that pain to everyone else, like you said, he fucking loved it when he got some pleasure out of it at the end. Like what did he lose? Nothing.
It also, I just think like it's a bit of a weird one. Like obviously this is a very contentious topic, but I think to a degree as well, it buys into like almost that way that like how like school shooters will do it knowing that they're going to get shot by the cops, so they don't really have to see the consequence of their actions.
They don't really care, yeah.
So it gives people this out, whereas like I think that knowing that you're going to have to live with what you do is like the ultimate punishment. Like I
don't think like I can't say for certain by every serial killer ever, but I feel like Albert Fish didn't care. Like he had zero remorse. Like he wouldn't have done so much of it if he didn't have remorse of it. He loved both receiving and giving out as much pain.
Yeah, exactly.
As possible, as well as the cannibalism stuff.
So like they're not losing anything by being sentenced to death.
Yeah, it's like almost like there's nothing you can really do to truly punish someone like that without being outside of the law.
Yeah,
and even that, like what are you gonna do? Beat him up? He'll love that.
Like, yeah, exactly.
What are you gonna do? Torture him? Yeah, he'll love that.
I think it's just let him rot. I think that really is it for me. Like
solitary
I think like
confinement or something.
Just
stick him in a dark room
with nothing
forever.
Yeah, just don't let them interact with people. Don't let them.
Yeah.
Don't let them. Like, I don't know, it sounds really dark, but like life is like such a gift, but it's only a gift if you can enjoy it. And if you take that enjoyment away from someone, it's worse to just kill them. Is like, well, they're just nothing. Then they don't know that they're losing anything.
They don't know that they died. Like,
no, because they're just gone. Whereas to have someone sat knowing that they will never see the good things in life again is, that is...
It's got to be the worst, yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's just, I just don't think an eye for an eye. I think just, you got to be better than these people, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's my opinion on it anyway. But, fucking heaven forbid, if it was your kid, you'd be fucking down there with a hammer yourself, wouldn't you? So, it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I wasn't going to do a middle bit, but I actually came up with one because I thought this might be the case, that things are a bit dark. So
something, please.
When did you come up with this? As Vinny was talking.
No. I came up with this ages ago. So you know, when you're at school, you get those ethical dilemmas. Like, it'll be like, oh, you're stuck in a cave and a fat guy's blocking the way out. Should you blow him up or whatever? Or should you...
like eat him, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a bit
no,
like
the
that.
classic example, that's a shit example, Seb. The classic example is, it's the picture of the train. Do you pull the lever to make it go right and run over one guy, or the lever to go left and run over three guys? That's the classic illustration.
Do you leave it and let it hit one guy?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Leave it and let it hit loads of people, or do you pull the button and it kills one person?
You did that. Anyway, it's a bit like that. So I'm going to give you a scenario, an imaginary scenario, in which someone dies at the hand of someone else, and you have to tell me whether you think it's murder or it's all right, morally, in your eyes. First question. A woman aborts a baby. Is that murder?
Oh, God, we can't do this.
No.
I'm joking. There's no middle bit. It was just all leading up to that.
He got us.
Okay, nice. Well done.
At least this one was a deliberate razzing, unlike the infamous higher or lower incident, which was not a joke to begin with.
That was just not nice. I didn't like that.
Yeah, Vinny was just like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not doing it.
Let's not do
I put my foot down.
Yeah, good job, Vinny. Good job, mate.
Yeah, man,
Anyway.
but I still talked about some fucked up shit.
Yeah, but that's
W.
Anyway, Michael, I mean, look, I don't know how we cleanse our palate.
Well, I don't know. That we just had a little bit of a giggle. We ripped the piss out of each other a little bit. We had a little bit of a giggle. I think we can get into it, can't we?
I hope you're
Michael, I think you
kids.
Yeah.
No, actually, not kids.
Okay, thank fuck.
And actually, quite interesting because obviously they are similar because they do both sort of kill people.
Right.
But there are some actual big differences between these two guys and their like psyche, I think, and their motivation potentially, and kind of why and how they kind of did this stuff. Should I just go for it?
Yeah, Mork, you what
I only timed it. It might be slightly long. Like I said, it's a little bit shorter than Napoleon, but it might be a little bit long. But we'll just get on with it, shall we?
There's not many people shorter than Napoleon, really.
Yeah.
Right,
he was average height for the time, actually. Do you know what, Seb? Actually, talking about Napoleon, this will be a good
here it is.
You said that he wasn't in the top 10 most influential historical figures, right?
Right, can I just pause?
No. Did you say that and did you believe it? No,
I do, and I still maintain it. But if you're going to pick up some list and be like, oh, Rolling Stone said, I don't know.
Not Rolling Stones. A historical book called Who is Bigger ranked the top 5 most influential historical figures that are alive. Number 1, Jesus. Number 3, Muhammad. Number 4, who was number 4? Somebody. Number 5, Abraham Lincoln. But number 2 was Napoleon, between Jesus and Muhammad. And they're historical people writing an objectively factual book. So, Seb, you be like, blood, Napoleon's not even top 10. Like, fuck off, Seb.
You are joking. If you put Napoleon above Muhammad, you are fucking insane.
I don't know about
Napoleon
that, bro.
was very influential, mate.
What? There's like 1 billion Muslims. How many Napoleons are
but there's also the Louisiana Purchase he did, and the Rosetta Stone, he helped find that, and also all the great military tactics he founded, and also the founding of essentially the Republic of France, and quite a lot of stuff, really.
There's more to society than there are other things in society than religion. You can still be massive without being a religious figure.
I know, but you can't. Fuck off. Bigger than Muhammad.
Don't argue with me. Argue with the people who actually know this shit.
Well, they don't, because they just said Napoleon was bigger than Muhammad.
Well, they obviously. Muhammad. These are the people who decide, mate. It's like when we say so and so's the GOAT. It's fucking fact, isn't it?
I just think that's diabolically stupid.
Let's get in. Shall I do my thing?
I'd put Napoleon, I'd put him around the same level as like Graham Norton. You know, he's just someone you heard of.
You're just a troll. You're just a troll, mate. You're just an internet troll, and I'm not gonna
We're doing a little bit of
feed the
trolling.
trolls.
We like to do a bit of trolling. Oh,
It's called trolling.
Was he
We do a
says-
little trolling.
we're doing a little trolling.
It's called
Yeah.
we do a little trolling.
Go,
Yeah.
we're doing a little trolling.
China.
Beautiful
Right.
trolling. It's a
Right.
beautiful city. I walked in here and I thought it's a beautiful city. Oh my god, yeah. I'm gonna build a wall. I'm gonna build a beautiful wall. I walked in here and I thought, I'm gonna build a beautiful wall.
Okay. Right. Serial killers.
That was wacky
Speaking of
accents
serial
with Sebek. Now for our next segment, Mork telling us about who he thinks is the most vicious serial killer of our generation.
Yeah. Well, serial killer anyway is a weird one because, like, this is obviously a woke episode, isn't it? So we're not discussing anything good about these people, saying one is better than the other. Like, I'm not saying my person is better than Vinny's, and that's why he should be considered the top serial killer or whatever. It's just the worst of the worst. These are just the worst people, the most heinous and disturbing crimes we could find. And like, it's a strange topic, isn't it, when you talk about like real people who have been killed. And I didn't want to turn it into like glorifying anything or like talking through every detail of every horrific thing that they did. Just like kind of focus on the aspects that make. No. Vinny didn't do that either. But I wasn't going to like. Vinny did not do that.
I did not go into detail. Trust me, bro. I
mean, like, go like, oh, on this day he murdered this person by doing
I just
this,
said
this,
strangled.
and on this day he murdered this person and did this.
I didn't go into detail, man. The coming in his pants, but I thought that was just interesting.
Yeah. No, but like, I thought yours was fine.
I hate this episode. I hate it so much.
You do this shit like for a job, Seb.
I know, but there's something about
surely
hearing
not that
two of my
bad.
friends talking about it that makes it so much worse.
No, these things really happen,
Oh, tell me about it.
And so, I was
Literally.
just trying to pick the one who like disturbed me the most, and the one that I genuinely thought was like set apart as that fucking hell. That's like the worst thing, I've heard someone really do. And there was only really one that I could think of that when I sort of really understood the extent of the crimes and the person behind them, I thought that's probably the most brutal story of a serial killer that I've kind of heard, because I only knew this person by name before, just learning really about them a couple of years ago. And I was just like shocked by like every twist and horrible detail and like understanding the whole picture, just so bleak. And so the person that I'm suggesting as the worst serial killer of all time is someone who is quite well known, Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal.
Dead arms.
So Jeffrey Dahmer, he was born in 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he didn't really have like the deeply traumatizing childhood that you would expect. Nowhere near the levels of Albert Fish. And there are conflicting reports about his childhood. Some say that he was probably deprived of attention, and some say he was like completely loved by his parents. But his father did work a lot, and he was away quite a lot, and his mother was a hypochondriac and had poor mental health. So, not the best, but I think it's reasonably important to note that he didn't suffer like extreme physical abuse. He didn't suffer in those kind of ways. Lots of people have childhoods that aren't perfect, and this is certainly not a nice childhood necessarily, but not.
I know people with
not to the
childhoods like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's whatever. So yeah, not in that kind of way.
Exactly. And you're not a murderer.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but also in his childhood, he did do some weird things. He started to become absolutely fascinated with dead animals. And he would collect animal skeletons. And he would later move on to collecting and dissecting roadkill that he had found. And most people, including his father, just thought that he was just genuinely really interested in them from like a scientific perspective. Like, it's fine, he's just interested in biology and all this kind of stuff. And they kind of encouraged, his father particularly kind of encouraged it. He would help him out. He would give him like a little space in the garage. And he showed him how to preserve animal bones by drenching them in bleach. And this is something that would definitely come up later on in Dahmer's life. And this obsession with like bones and dead things, it may have started off, like potentially it did start off in his mind as something scientific and interesting to him. but it would certainly become the building blocks for the more sinister things that would happen later on. Now, during his teenage years, I'll just put it like this. He was a bit of a weirdo. He was an outcast. People just, didn't really like him. And he began heavy drinking. Yeah, but yeah, like me, yeah. But he began. Don't keep comparing me to Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's all look the same as well. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Never seen Jeffrey and you in the same room together.
Yeah, right.
That is true. But he would become a teenage alcoholic, like a full-blown alcoholic. He would drink in school. And it was also in these teenage years that he realized that he was gay, and he began fantasizing about sexual relationships with men. But not only that, his fantasies would involve dominating submissive people who were unconscious. Sexual abuse, effectively.
Yep.
And by his own admission, he would intertwine these fantasies of sexual abuse with fantasies of dissection as well. Now, after graduating high school, his parents got divorced, and these fantasies that he was having would start to become reality. On June the 18th, 1978, Dahmer would give in to his fantasies and his deep desires, and he would pick up a hitchhiker by the name of Stephen Hicks. And he brought Hicks back to his home for a few hours of drinking, and Dahmer had intended to engage in sexual acts with him, but Hicks was clearly a straight man. So, wasn't going to work. Now, after some time, in Dahmer's own words, Hicks wanted to leave. He was like, I don't want to lift, whatever. But Dahmer didn't want him to leave. So he beat him with a dumbbell before strangling him to death. He then performed a sexual act over the body.
Oh, no.
Before taking the body to the basement, where he would dissect it and then bury it in the garden. A few weeks later, he dug the body back up again. He removed the flesh from the bones before crushing them with a sledgehammer and scattering the dust into the woods. And this is a pretty brutal murder.
That's like a fatality from Mortal Kombat. Jesus
scattering
Christ.
Bone dust, like that is, you can't get much. You can't really discard of a body in a, better way to it never be found than scattering the dust of the bones. And Dahmer started in the same way with his murders that he would then continue for the rest of his life. He would lure men in, he would get them drunk or spike their drinks. He would then murder them, sexually assault the bodies, then dismember them. All of his murders afterwards would follow these same sort of patterns. And obviously, he was never caught at this time. There was never a police investigation that kind of followed him. There was not that kind of alarm raised. Dahmer just moved on with absolutely no remorse whatsoever, like it was just a thing that happened. And it would actually be a decade before he would kill again and then go on his murder rampage. Now, in the next decade, he would be kicked out of the army after his father made him enlist, and he would go and live with his grandmother because it was just proving a bit of a handful. Because he would also be arrested for a public nudity offence. But in
Another
1980,
similarity.
I've never been arrested for public nudity, actually.
Almost.
That's slightly different. That was just a laugh. That was just a simple laugh.
That was just a jape. That was just a bit of good-natured Josh.
That was just a bit of fun. But no, so in 1987, he found himself in a bar with a man by the name of Stephen Tuomi. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he drugged Tuomi and he brought him back to his hotel, where Dahmer says he had only intended to lay with him on the bed while Tuomi was unconscious. However, when Dahmer woke up, he found Tuomi's body in a beaten and bloody mess laying on the bed, murdered by Dahmer.
He's like, how did this get here?
That's what he says.
I'm really annoyed now. It's like that big peep show.
Yeah.
Oh, I told him.
Have I? Oh, I haven't. Oh, that's really annoying.
That's what that is kind of what he says. He didn't know
far.
he'd done it, basically.
I've gone too far.
Yeah. Well, he really went too far in a minute because his reaction was to stuff the body into a suitcase. He brought it back to his grandmother's house, dismembered it, but he kept the head in a bag and preserved the skull, which he would use as part of his sexual fantasies.
Oh no.
Yeah. He eventually discarded of the skull.
That's a bit of a head fuck, isn't it?
Sam, for fuck's sake. We've got to cut that. You cannot say that.
Oh, it's funny how much lighter the mood is with serial killers when it's not involving kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, true.
When it's involving adults, it's like, yeah, it's kind of funny, to be honest.
That's what he did, though.
Yeah.
He didn't do the bleach in the right way. The skull became too brittle, so he got rid of it. Yeah. Now this was a major turning point because after his second murder, Dahmer had now kept a trophy of his crime, and he'd also realized that he could just do this easily, and that in fact, this is what he wanted to do. He would then go on to just give in to these desires to murder and mutilate men using their bodies for his sort of sexual pleasure. And this isn't in my script, but I wanted to mention it because it's weird, and it was just a way of me trying to rationalize it. The way he describes it, it feels as if, have you ever done something that you know you shouldn't do? Like speeding. Let's say speeding. Say there's a road you drive every day, and one day you have this kind of thing like, I could get there so much quicker if I just fucking put my foot down. One day you just do it, and it's like a bit of a rush, and you feel like, oh shit, I could get caught, but you don't get caught. So the next day you're like, oh, I'll just do it again because I didn't get caught. You do it again and it becomes easy until it just becomes an easy habit where you're like, I can just do it now. Like I know it's bad, but I can just do it because like nothing's ever going to happen.
Right.
That was kind of my way of trying to rationalize how he just gave into these desires. He was like, I know that I can just do it now, so I'll just keep doing it.
You know what? I it's a similar thing. I don't know if it's, but I get what you're saying because this is so weird, but I did the same thing with riding my motorbike. I used to wear full leathers. I would wear a jacket and jeans or motorbike trousers and boots. And then as it got really hot last summer, the layers just started to come off. So I'd be wearing a jacket. Maybe not like jeans or like. And then by the end of it, I was riding to work. I was doing like an hour bike ride in Converse, shorts and a t-shirt. It was so hot, and I just brought the line down incrementally, and then I look back at that now, and I'm like, that is so stupid. I was doing like 50 mile an hour down the dual carriageway in shorts and a t-shirt. If I'd come off, I'd just be splattered. But you just don't. You kind of like, it's not the same, like you said, but it's the closest thing you can kind of get to of like, you kind of slowly break down a barrier until by the end you just stop really thinking about how how bad of an idea it is.
Well, it's like anything. It's like, like let's say shoplifting. Let's say one day you decided like, I'm just going to take this thing out of this shop. And you kind of do it and nothing happens. And so you're like, oh, I could just do it again. It's kind of like that is kind of how he was going. So he was now like just actively seeking victims and just giving in to these compulsions and just acting upon what he wanted to do, basically. So he would murder several more men between now and 1990, dismembering them, abusing them in his grandmother's basement. She was suspicious of him, though. Not that he was murdering anybody, but he was bringing men back to her house, and she was suspicious. So she kicked him out. But it never really went any further than that. This was the first real chance to raise the, alarm and kind of catch him and do it. But completely missed. Now, in 1990, he moved into his own apartment, and after only a week in his apartment, he would murder his sixth victim. And it was at this time that he began keeping even more of the body parts because he's got his own room. So he would keep body parts all over his apartment, in his freezer, he would keep the skulls in his like towel cupboard, everywhere.
It's anywhere great when you move into your own place, just like, I've got all this space.
Leave the stuff anywhere. Yeah. Basically, it was just like that. He's now got freedom. Himself. No one's watching after him. He can just be a bit more free and a bit more careless and reckless with, what he does in his own space. And he would also start taking photos of the bodies in like sexual positions. He also began keeping organs and body parts, and he started to consume them in acts of cannibalism. His neighbors began complaining about the smell of his apartment, but yet again, no further action was taken, and another opportunity to catch him went by. However, the most shocking opportunity to catch Dahmer would go by very soon after. After drugging and abusing a 14-year-old boy, Dahmer had left the apartment to get more beer. When he returned, the boy was sat outside the building with 3 distressed women and 2 police officers. Dahmer told the police officers very calmly that the boy was his drunk boyfriend. The women pleaded with the officers that something wasn't right, but they were told by the officers, quote, "Shut the hell up." Now, these women were also black women, and these were white police officers, which tells you a little bit about why they weren't necessarily believed. They fully believed Jeffrey Dahmer, and go on.
There's maybe you're going to come to this, but a super common thread, especially around it's a bit different now, but it still takes place now. Stephen Port was another case like this that happened in the UK a lot more recently. But when gay men are abused or go missing or are found intoxicated or with signs of abuse, because there's this weird stigma around gay relationships and it being much more kinky and bondagey, which isn't true. Loads of gay men and women just have very normal, very vanilla relationships.
Yeah. Lights on.
But what's that?
Missionary sex, lights off, socks on.
Yeah, in the mish, socks on.
How I like it.
Exactly.
Say good job afterwards, handshake afterwards.
Job well done. Put your clothes back on and watch the telly. Yeah, exactly. But because there's this reputation almost about gay sex.
Yeah.
There's it comes up all the time. Victims are found. Stephen Port is another case like this that happened in the UK where gay men kept meeting this one guy and then going missing. And the police just kept being yeah, but that's just gay men, isn't it? They're always, fucking around, going missing.
That's a good point because, I was sort of wondering this, that I was thinking, I feel like there's more, of the serial killers that I know, I mean, obviously we both picked homosexual serial killers, but I feel like there's, a slightly bigger proportion of serial killers that, the well-known ones at least, being homosexual, or at least bisexual. And maybe the reason is because the heterosexual ones get caught quicker because
100%.
Because the victims are believed more. Because you got John 100%. Wayne Gacy as well. He was the similar thing as well 100%. Around the same time.
If a young white girl goes missing, it's action stations. If a gay guy goes missing,
no one knows.
It's not so much like this anymore, but people can be very gay men do that.
Well, this is in the 80s as well, isn't it? So.
And people, this is fucking all the time. People getting caught, beaten up outside public toilets and stuff, and they've clearly gone looking for gay sex, and then police just being yeah, well, that's what you get. You know?
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Yeah. It's fucked up, isn't it?
Grim.
Yeah.
It is fucked up.
Yep.
Well, these police officers, they actually escorted both Dahmer and this boy back to Dahmer's apartment, and they took a brief little look around. And then they just left, saying that, Dahmer, take care of your boyfriend, will ya? They literally walked that boy to his grave, handed him back to the killer. Had these officers looked around any further, they not only would have found all the body parts and evidence, they would have also found another rotting corpse of the man he had killed a few weeks later or days later, literally on his bedroom floor. There was all the evidence they needed right there under their noses, and they couldn't really be bothered to look for it.
Jesus.
Now, Dahmer was actually eventually caught when one of his victims, would-be victims, I suppose, Tracy Edwards, managed to escape the apartment and inform police that Dahmer had tried to drug him and sexually abuse him. Dahmer was obviously arrested and confessed to all the killings, saying that he just couldn't stop himself. The list of shit they found in his apartment is massively extensive. There are photographs of firefighters and police officers, whoever, literally carrying out, you know, those big fucking oil drums, like tons of them just full of body parts and horrible stuff. But he said that he just gave in to his compulsions to kill these men. It was his deep desire. It was all he could think about. It was just his thing that drove him. He'd get up in the morning, and this endless cycle of murder, sexual abuse, consuming of their flesh and preserving their bodies was just what drove him. He couldn't stop himself. It was his life was just revolving around doing this all the time. And the fact that he was not caught, nothing ever, you know, came up, it just meant he could just carry on. He was just recklessly killing endlessly. And within the space of these short 4 years, he killed 16 men, including the murder a decade earlier. Dahmer killed 17 men in total.
17. Wow. That's quite a big number, really.
That is a lot.
It is a big number. And obviously, one isolated incident, but 16 in 4 years is, I don't know how many that is. One every couple of months.
It's like the Beatles of serial killers.
I mean, but this is another thing. Like, it's mad how many how far things can go, because people just kind of. I think we're more rightly or wrongly, we're more kind of alerted to it now. I think people people are a bit more obsessed with murders and serial killers and stuff. But like in the 90s and stuff, serial killers were still a new idea. And you could just get away with stuff because people just wouldn't really think about it. Like, there's so many serial killers just get away with stuff by just chucking stuff in the bin. They're not even going to that much effort, because people just, like, who's looking? You know what I mean? Like, if someone,
that's the thing is, when these like missing people reports come up, it's not like nowadays where you've got social media, news, and everything to like put these people out there. It was just like, a gay guy goes missing. Okay, no one cares. Like,
no, literally. So. And also, again, like going back to the gay thing, as something I forgot to say is like, especially maybe not so much in the 90s, but still in the 90s and still now even, being gay is so frowned upon in some communities, and so many gay people, men and women, are like exiled from their families, that gay people not having people looking out for them is quite common, and people not knowing where gay people are.
That's a good
people
point.
Kind of going off the radar, especially in the 90s when there wasn't social media, and people their only family might be the community they're in. It's really difficult.
Wasn't a big part of the reason why the big part of the reason why you don't get as many serial killers nowadays is just CCTV, like surveillance is through the roof, especially in this country. Also forensics and DNA solved
massively,
a lot of fucking crime.
Massively.
Definitely.
But the shocking thing about Dahmer is, like, there were so many opportunities to catch him where it was plain obvious. Like, you didn't have to try. He wasn't trying that. He wasn't really trying hard to conceal his crimes. Like, there were loads and loads and loads of opportunities.
Like his neighbor
rung the police so many times saying she smelt this, and the people were just like, shut up, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in 1992, he was sentenced to 16 life terms in prison. And just 2 years later, he himself would be murdered by a fellow prison inmate who told him that God had said for him to kill him. Yeah.
Wow.
And the inmate also said that Dahmer made no noise, put up no struggle, just lay there, took it, accepted his fate as he was beaten to death. Now,
cold.
Yeah. In conclusion, Jeffrey Dahmer was a true monster. Like, in my mind, the worst serial killer of all time. Like, just the extent of his crimes, the brutality of them is horrifying. Murder, sexual assault, cannibalism, preserving of body parts. They're just these are the worst things that you can do to a person. And this is why I think it's a lot different to yours, Vinny. I think yours, you can clearly say, you know, the hallucinations, the childhood trauma, all this kind of stuff. You can build this character. You know, it shapes the mind. It builds this beast. But the case of Jeffrey Dahmer has long been debated about whether you are born a killer or whether you are made a killer. And he tried as a sane man. He was cleared as sane, completely sane in his trial when he was sentenced, which perhaps gives evidence that he was simply born this way. He just nothing made him like this. He just was like this.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing about Dahmer is the fact that, like, with the vast majority of serial killers, you can almost always point to some horrific trauma from their childhood. Maybe they were, like, raped by their parents. Maybe their mum was, like, physically and psychologically abusive. Like, they had a really, really bad upbringing, and that sort of formed them into the people they are when they do those killings. But with Jeffrey Dahmer, like, yeah, he didn't have the greatest upbringing, sure, but, like, none of the telltale signs of
I
mean,
like, it's fairly normal upbringing, really. Like, honestly, like, not that.
Yeah, I mean, a large
average
percentage of people would have had very similar upbringings.
Yeah.
Also,
and so, like, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things that it's like a weird thing, but I weirdly take comfort from, which sounds really gross, but it's like a lot of people go through really dark shit and don't do those things. Think about how many people went through the Holocaust, how many people went through the Rwandan genocide. Like, that's just big numbers. How many people who've had really troubling childhoods, how many people have had horrible experiences. The vast majority of those people don't go on to commit
of course, crime
like that. So it does make you wonder, like, what is the difference? What is the factor in people like Jeffrey Dahmer and even Albert Fish? Like, what I'm sure there are other people who had childhoods as bad as Albert Fish.
I think in some cases, I would say in Fish's case, you are susceptible to it more than others, and then a big trauma can just trigger it. So there could be people out there who would be susceptible to having the capacity to do those horrible things, but having never been exposed to a trauma like that, it just kind of never comes to fruition. Yeah. And then you have people like Dahmer who are literally born with this, like, curiosity, fucking real remorse, just ability to be able to do this, and it become a real desire.
Yeah, it's almost like he had the unfortunate combination of, like, a lack of empathy, like maybe he was a sociopath or something, and this obsession with, like, dissecting and, like, mutilating or whatever. Like, there's a horrible sort of combination which has happened, which has led him to be like, this is okay, this is what I want to do, go out and kill people.
Well, that's another really interesting thing, isn't it? Like, there's so many people who, like, there are, like, psychopaths and sociopaths are not hugely uncommon. They are very uncommon, like, statistically, but not as uncommon as people would probably think. And there's loads of statistics, like people like surgeons and doctors and
CEOs
and stuff like that have traits or will have, like, sociopathic tendencies and stuff like that. But the vast majority of those people never ever hurt anyone.
Yeah, it's not like all psychopaths will be killers.
Not at all. And again, it's so weird to think, like, what makes those people go on to do those things? Who knows? Yeah,
it's a weird combination. Well, he gave several interviews before his death, actually, and he even said that he wanted his brain to be donated to science to be studied about what makes a killer.
They love doing that because it makes them feel important.
Yeah, but it wasn't given in the end because of a dispute between his parents. But anyway, in these interviews, he speaks very honestly about, like, how he did everything, why he did everything. He shows absolutely no remorse in the slightest. It is interesting, these interviews, because although he shows no remorse, he doesn't necessarily show any real pleasure. Like, I've heard, like, other killers, I think John Wayne Gacy was like, I fucking loved it, I love doing that, I love fucking hurting people. He's just like, it was like going to work for him. I did it, I did it. I know it's wrong, I understand that they're, like, really sad, like, their parents and, their kids or whatever, they're all really sad, I get it, but, I just did it. It was just the thing that I just kind of did. Like, he didn't really care because he just couldn't help himself. And so, that's why in my mind he's the worst killer of all time.
The sickest bastard.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Fair play. I mean, you've both pulled out of the bag there because they're both really, really grim, obviously. I think, like...
Yeah, because for a minute I was going to do Hitler.
Yeah.
He's not a serial killer. He's not a serial killer. He's not a serial killer.
I know. loads of people. If you look up loads of things, they go, "He was a serial killer," and so I was like, "Oh, maybe I can like wangle," because I was like, "You can't." I was like, "No, it doesn't matter who you bring. So you're not trumping Hitler." But I was like, "He's just not a serial killer."
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if there's some dispute about whether Hitler actually killed anyone with his own by his own hand.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, like.
Also, it's the same goes for like Charles Manson. I don't think Charles Manson ever actually.
I don't think he did. He's got
his trial was such a fucking. He was a terrible person, but his trial, he kind of won because he made such a like the US justice system was. He like was given a trial with like no jury. He was just like sentenced immediately, which then like completely bought into all his like weird ideas. It was so stupid.
And then he got sampled on a Death Grips track years later. It's almost like you shouldn't publicize these people. I watched an interesting video on YouTube the other day, earlier today, about how like you really like the big reason why school shootings happen is because the news report them, like, and they want to report the biggest ones. They want to be like, this guy got fucking 20 kills, mate. This is one of the worst ones and they want to be that. So that's a lot of the time why they do it. It is just for that notoriety, because they're like, well, I just want to kill myself anyway, so I might as well just.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? Yeah, they see the notoriety of other people and they think that's kind of what I want. Yeah, it's weird,
almost like you really shouldn't publicize this stuff, but
this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
here we are, guys.
In Norway, they didn't publicize his name. We'll bleep Anders Breivik's name. We'll bleep it. Fuck him.
We don't need to bleep it. They literally made a film about it recently.
Yeah, I know, but I kind of like bleeping it because I know I hate it. And
he's still alive.
Yeah,
he's listening.
They made a film about him. They made a film about him that I watched like 2 years ago.
The Ouija's won't kill him. They'll let him fucking rot. He's a bastard.
Yeah, well, yeah, he is a bastard. But yeah, there we go.
Anyway, wow, fucking hell. That is two really good picks. I have to say, like, I don't know, I sound like a bellend. I'll say it, and then if I sound like a bellend, we'll just cut it. But, not surprisingly nuanced, but like, I was expecting more bait answers. Just because, like, with the messages that we get red-handed all the time, we're like, oh, do Charles Manson, do fucking... I don't know, the really famous ones. Obviously, both Albert Fish and Jeffrey Dahmer are really famous, but there's a lot to them. There is a lot to them, and they're famous for a reason.
Yeah, I genuinely just picked Albert Fish because it was just like
the worst thing you heard.
The most fucked up human being.
Yeah, that's why I picked Dahmer. I know he is a big name, and it's almost like he's like a cultural one, icon. You know, that kind of everyone's heard of. He's one of the well-known serial killers. He's one of the very, very well-known ones. But it was just the one that when I like saw the documentaries of and stuff, I was like, fucking hell, like I haven't really seen a serial killer do that kind of really horrible shit. That's probably the worst thing I've seen.
Yeah, I would say that both horrible for very different reasons, and I think like. Because I listen to this stuff a lot for work, there's like two different reactions I get to cases. Some of it is like the kind of emotional pain, like you kind of feel so bad for like the families and the men and women going through it, and like it really, and that's kind of how the Jeffrey Dahmer case gets me, at least, like because those, you know, these young gay men and stuff like being abducted and being victimized in that way, you kind of get this like. It gives you that like emotional pain, whereas Albert Fish gives me this like ick pain. There's another guy who called Anatoly Moskvin, who I would really recommend if you have any desire to seek out more repugnant things like this. He has big Albert Fish vibes. He like killed young girls and then turned them into little dolls, which he kept in his house.
Oh yeah, I heard about that fella.
I still think about that. That was grim.
Yeah.
But I have to come to a conclusion of the worst of all time. And I will say it is not a difficult one. Jeffrey Dahmer is horrific. And I much preferred listening to Mork talk about it.
Yeah.
Albert Fish is the worst thing I've heard in a long time, and I work in true crime. And what Vinny talked about for that 15 minutes made me feel physically uncomfortable. And without doubt is the worst serial killer of all time out of these two people. Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
I almost felt like mine was a bit... I kind of was like, you know what, mine's going to be a bit tame now.
Yeah, I left out some stuff.
Absolutely awful.
I left out
I thought I was thinking I might have to... I was like, I have to make some stuff up, you know, because that
true stories that never happened.
Yeah, exactly. Because I totally agree. That fish guy, like, Vinny, I had heard of the letter thing.
Yeah.
It was the like, oh, they tasted so good and all that. Like, I heard those guys discussing it and just saying like it's the worst thing they've ever heard ever. And but I didn't know any of the other story of that, but it's fucked up.
And like you said about Dahmer, he was kind of neither here nor there. He wasn't remorseful, but he wasn't remorseless. He was just kind of mid-ground,
so
whereas
unfazed by everything.
In my mind, that made it worse because it felt like, well, there's.
And it does.
Yeah, the thing is, the reason why I thought he was the worst. I mean, he's not as bad as this other guy for sure. But when I first heard about the Dahmer stuff and actually understood, okay, this is actually what this guy did, even though I've heard his name, it was that fact that he was so like, I just had to do it. That made it more terrifying and more evil because I was like, well, you don't have an excuse then. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have that. It's not, not an excuse, but it can't, I guess that's
thrill out of it.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't have
the.
So he didn't have that excuse of like, well, he was like created because of abuse and trauma, and you can't look at Dahmer and say, oh, maybe if he wasn't like sexually abused as a kid, this would never have happened. Whereas you look at Fish and go, maybe if he wasn't, beaten the shit out of in an orphanage and abused by his parents and all this stuff.
Had like, I don't know if he was abused by his parents, but his whole family had like a whole host of mental.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can look at people in that way and go, maybe if all that stuff didn't happen, we wouldn't have been here. But with Dahmer, you can roll that dice a million times. You're always going to get Dahmer because he doesn't have that as a crutch, and that made it worse for me when I heard about it. But I think the crimes that this guy the crimes that Fish committed.
Just the fact that they've like, because the lawyers are really going for like, no sane man would eat another person, no sane man would eat shit and drink someone else's blood, all these horrific things. No sane man would do it, and the jury was like, yeah, we agree. And like, I think they got psychologists in to like look at him, and they were like, yep, he's got a whole host of mental illnesses, he's definitely not sane. And even with that he couldn't get the insanities case just because of how just morally
they just wanted to get him to be executed.
They just wanted him gone. They wanted that out of this world. Like, it's like I said, viewer discretion advised. Like,
definitely on that one. Yeah,
fucking dark. And again, I did skip some details, so let's be thankful for that.
Be thankful for that.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about Dahmer, which is something I didn't know. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix. Well, two things I've got to say. The Netflix like dramatization. I think it's like an 8-parter.
I watched some,
The first interesting thing is the guy who plays Dahmer in that dramatization, Vinny, you'll know this actor because he plays Michael Scott's nephew in that one episode of The Office where he hires his nephew who's really shit at his job and then spanks him in the office. That's the same actor. So because of that Michael Scott spanking, he went on to be a killer cannibal.
Jeffrey Dahmer, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. But the other thing is, I don't know if you remember this scene. If you didn't watch all of it, you might not. There's a scene in that dramatization where during his trial where this woman who is, I think, the sister of one of the victims, like, she's giving this testimony against him or something. She's giving some speech. And then she just starts going crazy. She's like, you want to see crazy? I'm fucking crazy. And she's like, starts shouting, and she's like, just runs across the court. I'm like, I'm going to fucking murder you. Like, she's going mad, and security, like, getting stuff. And when I watched that scene, I was like, God damn, that was fucking powerful. That's a really powerful scene. That really happened. That's real. That isn't a dramatization scene. That's almost a word for word, shot for shot remake of really what that real life woman said. And you can look it up on YouTube, the real version. the real version is obviously way more moving. But I found when I realized, oh shit, they didn't just make that up for the drama. Like that was that real person's response was crazy to me.
Wow.
But yeah. Tune in next week for our Christmas special, everyone.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Jingle bells are ringing.
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, that happened.
Next week, when this comes, a week later from this episode dropping, is Christmas Day, and that's when our Christmas episode will go live.
Well, that is just great news. I am just so glad to hear that is the case.
We'll be back with the funny shit then, because I was saying to Vinny before, God, we've timed this bad. We've done dictator, serial killer, Christmas.
Go out with a bang. That's what I always say. Look, thanks for listening. This has been Goats. This week discussing one of the worst topics we've ever done. Quite a humbling and more serious episode than normal. We did get a few little bits of
I think it was a serious one
in there, but sometimes you've just got to fucking do the legwork. Very interesting.
For a minute.
And so Albert Fish, we'll send him out a little card. Send it to his family; they'll be happy. Worst serial killer of all time.
Yeah.
Come back next week for the Christmas special. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Watch this on YouTube so you can see me and Michael looking absolutely horrified at everything Vinny says. Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. See ya.
Vinny, no, Vinny.
Love you. Goodbye.
Yes. I nearly hit disconnect on the Discord then instead of something.
Pure disgust.
Boom.